Hello everybody and welcome to the Constable. Please subscribe now to get the latest news on archaeology, ancient history, civilizations and world mythology. Who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus? In Kings chapter 6 verse 1, the Exodus was dated to 480 years before the founding of Jerusalem's temple by King Solomon. According to the Orthodox chronology, this gives a date of around 1450 BC. However, Exodus chapter 1 verse 11 states that Pharaoh put the Hebrews to work on the cities of Pithom and Ramesses. The location of Pithom is in doubt, but the city of Ramesses is thought to be Pi Ramesses, built by Ramesses II, dated to between 1279 to 1212 BC. As a result, it is usually suggested that the Israelites actually worked on a settlement in the same location as Pi Ramesses, which predates it. A stele from the reign of Manetho, the successor of Ramesses II, notes that Israel is laid waste, bare of seed, confirming that the Exodus must have taken place before his reign, given the 40-year sojourn in the desert, dated to 1212 to 1202 BC. The name Moses may be the Egyptian name Moses or Messes, meaning born of. This was usually combined with the name of a god, example, Thutmose or Ramesses. However, the name may also come from the Hebrew verb mashah, to draw out, and be translated as he draws out. In Exodus chapter 2 verse 10, Pharaoh's daughter states that she gave him his name because I drew him out of the water. Perhaps she chose an Egyptian pun on a Hebrew name to reflect his origin. Moses apparently belonged to a group of Semitic settlers whose ancestors arrived in Egypt from the land of Canaan. People from Canaan had settled the delta since the middle of the 12th dynasty. Remains from the settlement at Tel el-Dabar in the delta confirm that the settlers were Semitic nomads and pastoralists, like the Hebrews. This settlement grew and developed into Hyksos, capital of Avaris, and was later swallowed up by Pi Ramesses. According to the modern translation of the Bible, Moses prophesied the advent of the 10 plagues of Egypt and then escaped with the Israelites via the Red Sea. Pharaoh gave chase and God saved the Israelites by parting the waters to allow them safe passage. Pharaoh's charioteers were all lost. There are a bewildering number of theories regarding this biblical tale, ranging from the sublime to the ridiculous. Even if the basic events of the Exodus are accepted, and many strongly believe the tale is purely fictional, the identity of the Pharaoh is open to debate. So, who was the actual Pharaoh of the Exodus? Let's examine these pharaohs one after the other, starting with Ahmose I. The temple steles erected by the Pharaoh Ahmose I dated to about 1570 and 1546 BC. The founder of Dynasty 18 and the New Kingdom. The stele describes a great storm that struck Egypt during his reign. Now then, the gods declare their discontent. The gods caused the sky to come in a tempest of rain, with darkness in the western region and the sky being unleashed without cessation, that are louder than the cries of the masses, more powerful than while the rain raged on the mountains, louder than the noise of the cataract, which is at Elephantine. Proponents further suggest that the phrase His Majesty began to provide them with silver, with gold, with copper, with oil, and of every bolt of cloth that would be desired. Then His Majesty made himself comfortable inside the palace, refers to Pharaoh giving Moses the material to build the ark. Thus, Moses became Hyksos' leader, accepting goods from the Egyptian Pharaoh as part of a deal which will result in the Hyksos leaving Egypt. Manetho alleged that the Theban Pharaoh laid siege to Avaris, the Hyksos capital, and the outcome was a treaty by which the Hyksos agreed to leave Egypt. Manetho also claimed that the Hyksos settled in Jerusalem. This puts a rather different slant on the biblical description of bondage in Egypt. The Hyksos invaded Egypt and held power in northern Egypt for over 100 years according to Manetho, and even sacked Memphis around 1720 BC. They were eventually forced from the country by a rival line of kings from Thebes. Thus, the put upon slaves become an invading power, and any monuments they built were for their own kingdom. Furthermore, the Hyksos kings placed their names in cartouche and adopted Seth as their preeminent god. While his warlike attributes have something in common with the gods of Moses, worship of the Egyptian god Seth could hardly be considered monotheistic. The biblical plagues have often been dismissed as being far too late to name Ahmose I as the Pharaoh of the Exodus, but proponents argue that the dates currently accepted for the Exodus are too late in any case. Some commentators have argued that there was in fact 585 years from the founding of Solomon's temple back to the Exodus, giving a date of 1552. Akhenaten. Manetho tells the story of Osashef, a rebellious Egyptian priest, Pharaoh Amenhotep, and his son Ramesses, also called Seto of the New Kingdom. Apparently, Osashef took control of Egypt for 13 years. He defiled the temples and terrorized the people. Pharaoh fled from Egypt to protect his infant son, but the son returned to Egypt and threw Osashef out of Egypt. According to Josephus, Manetho believed that Osashef was Moses, and many have pointed to the similarity between these events and the rule of Akhenaten. Akhenaten certainly rejected the gods and imposed a form of monotheism. However, Josephus also quotes an alternative Egyptian historian, Cheremon. He also identifies the rebel priest with Moses, but names him Tisaten. He also claims that there was a co-conspirator named Peteshef, who he considered to be Joseph. This does not sound much like Akhenaten, who only really shared power with his wife. In any case, there is plenty of evidence that the beginning of Akhenaten's rule was fairly normal and that he was the direct successor of his father, the Pharaoh Amenhotep III. Furthermore, neither account refer to Menkaure or Tutankhamun and the return to Thebes. Ramesses I. Some commentators have argued that the story of Osashef's rebellion should be placed during the co-regency of Ramesses I and Seti I during the New Kingdom. They proposed that there was a counter-revolution when Akhenaten died. Horemheb persecuted the followers of Akhenaten and destroyed his monument. When Horemheb died, Osashef or Moses returned to Egypt to lead the rebellion against Horemheb's successor, Ramesses I. Like Horemheb, Ramesses was general in the army and had no royal blood. He ruled for only 2 years before passing power to his son, Seti I. If the Bible is correct to state that Moses an adopted member of the royal household, then he may have had a tenuous claim to the throne. The fact that Akhenaten had been written out of Egyptian history, he is notably absent from the king's list written during the reign of Seti I and Ramesses II, seems consistent with this view. But little else from the reign of Ramesses I would support this tale, which does seem rather unlikely. The story is probably based almost entirely on the view that Akhenaten was the first known monotheist. But that view is to simplify both the theology of Akhenaten and to stretch the facts to their limit as no evidence for any counter-rebellion. Thutmose III or Hatshepsut. When Thera exploded, it effectively destroyed the Minoan civilization and caused huge tidal waves and a huge pillar of black smoke. Many commentators have noted that the 10 plagues of Egypt can be explained with reference to the environmental effect of such a huge volcanic eruption. The eruption is estimated by carbon dating and supporting environmental evidence from a number of sites around the world to have occurred around 1640 BC. So, who was the pharaoh when Thera exploded? Some have suggested that the new kingdom, Thutmose III, may have been in control of Egypt at this time, or may have been sharing power with Hatshepsut. It is noted that he led armies between the Bitter Lakes into Canaan, possibly the route taken by Moses, and a section of text carved on the outside of Hatshepsut's temple of Spears and Artemidos has been reinterpreted by one Egyptologist to contain a reference to the eruption of Thera. However, the campaigns of Thutmose III in Canaan were highly successful. Furthermore, there was no successional difficulty with his son who maintained Egyptian power in that area. It is hard to see the Israelites escaping him as he plundered the area, unless this is the reason for hiding in the desert for 40 years. The Minoans imported a copper calcium silicate pigment called Egyptian blue to paint frescoes. Therefore, we know that the two cultures had trading links. In the tomb of Senemoth, architect and vizier to Hatshepsut, there is a scene depicting men wearing short patterned kilts carrying late Minoan A1 pottery vases. While in the tomb of Regmire, a vizier of Thutmose III, a man carries a piece of late Minoan 1B pottery. The figure is wearing a longer kilt, associated with the later phase of Minoan culture. It is during this phase that Thera erupted. This causes a major problem for the dating system, as Thutmose is generally considered to have reigned between about 1504 and 1450 BC, not 1640 BC. Even if the dates could be reconciled, the details of his reign do not really fit too well. Queen Hatshepsut ruled Egypt after the death of her husband, Thutmose II. Her stepson Thutmose III was her co-regent for some time and took the throne on her death. At some point in his rule, he seemed to have ordered her name to be purged from all her monuments, despite the apparent acrimony between them. Hatshepsut was a powerful and able ruler, and Thutmose inherited a prosperous nation from her. He became famous as a strong warrior pharaoh who plundered the very area that the Israelites were fleeing to. However, there is some limited classical support lining Thutmose and Moses. According to Josephus, Moses was his general in the campaign against the Ethiopians. It is argued by some that Thutmose took the credit for these victories. However, this is not historically accurate. Thutmose takes credit for his extensive campaign in Asia, including Megiddo, Kadesh, and Gaza. Moses apparently returned from the military campaign, took an Ethiopian wife, and then demanded that his people be freed. Seti II. The route chosen by the escaping Israelites from the Ramesses to Jeku, biblical Sukkot, or according to Exodus chapter 12 verse 37, and east-west, was precisely the same that was used by two escaping slaves of the late 13th century BC during the reign of Seti II, as reported in Papyrus Anastasi V. What do you think about this? Which of these pharaohs do you think was the pharaoh of the Exodus? Kindly drop your thought in comment. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace.
To the constable.